Laudetur Jesus Christus. Vatican and World News.
In the headlines this Saturday, November the 21st, top-class economists addressed the participants at the online The Economy of Francesco event, highlighting the need to act now to save the future of the planet. G20 leaders also gather online in the quest for strategies to fight the effects of the pandemic on the world's wealthiest economies. And Pakistani Cardinal Joseph Quds calls on the government to protect the rights of minorities in the country. In the Vatican, I'm Linda Bordoni. Today is the third and last day of the Economy of Francesco online event that gathers young economists and world experts to make a plan to transform the current economic model into an inclusive system that works for everyone and for the planet. Pope Francis, who convoked the meeting in 2019, inviting young people all over the world to take action now for the future, will address participants in a video message concluding the event. Meanwhile, among the keynote speakers of the day were top economists Kate Raworth and John Perkins in an event entitled We Are All Developing Countries. In her intervention, Raworth, who is known for her work on the donut economics, which she understands as an economic model that balances between essential human needs and planetary boundaries, explained why we are all developing nations.
Why would we expect last century's economic theories and governmental policies and business models to turn this around? They won't. They weren't designed to solve this challenge. We need to come with new economic theories and policies and business models of our own that are fit for our times to turn this story around. And in 2020, we know this is the beginning of a critical decade in which we must halve global carbon emissions, in which we must begin to restore and regenerate the living systems of Earth, in which we must strive to meet those social goals of the Sustainable Development Goals. So this year is a crucial beginning to turning this story around and enabling our grandchildren, every one of us, to ask us when they are the age we are now, did you know? And what did you do once you knew? But let's bring it down to the very different story in different nations. So let me start with Rwanda. We can see that Rwanda is massively falling short on meeting people's essential needs, but it's not overshooting its pressure on any of those planetary boundaries. The people of Rwanda are living well within their share of planetary boundary. In the middle, we've got Brazil. Like many countries, it's partly falling short and already in overshoot. So it's got the double whammy of meeting people's needs and already coming back within planetary boundaries. And then I have the US, a country that, because it's got a very high income per capita, $63,000 per person, we'd expect was easily meeting the essential needs of all its people, but still it's not because of inequalities, even in the world's richest countries, but massively overshooting its pressure on the planet. By the way, that big overshoot is true for every high income nation. Now, here's 150 nations. And the goal is to get to where we meet the needs of all people, but do so coming back within the means of the living planet. And as you can see, there is not a single country that can say it's there. And this is why I believe we are all developing countries now.
And that was economist Kate Raworth speaking today during the Economy of Francesco event. Another online summit is taking place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, also to discuss economy. It's the G20 summit in which leaders of the world's most powerful economies aim to show cooperation in fighting the coronavirus pandemic. Nathan Morley has more.
At this virtual summit, which is being organised by Saudi Arabia, the UN Secretary-General will tell G20 leaders to support global mechanisms which are striving to make any COVID vaccines and therapeutics affordable and accessible to anyone, anywhere who needs them. Speaking just prior to the event, Antonio Guterres called for solidarity and cooperation between G20 members.
I will take part, and my main message is simple. We need solidarity and cooperation. And we need concrete action now, especially for the most vulnerable. We must advance on two fronts. First, recovering in a way that is inclusive, bringing everyone along. Second, recovering in a way that is sustainable, meaning, above all, stepped up climate action. The recent breakthroughs on COVID-19 vaccines offer a ray of hope. But that ray of hope needs to reach everyone. That means ensuring that vaccines are treated as a global public good, accessible and affordable to everyone, everywhere. A people's vaccine.
Mr. Guterres said that $28 billion more is needed for COVID research, including $4.2 billion before the end of the year.
G20 countries have the resources, and I'm urging all of them to fully support the ACT Accelerator.
During their two-day summit, participants will also debate climate change and global trade. US President Donald Trump will participate in the virtual summit from the White House. For Vatican News, this is Nathan Morley reporting.
In Afghanistan, at least 8 people were killed and more than 30 wounded when a barrage of rockets hit residential areas of the capital, Kabul. Officials said more than a dozen rockets were fired from a pickup truck inside the city. The attack was claimed by the regional Islamic State group. It happened just hours before a meeting between US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Taliban negotiators in an effort to resume peace talks. Earlier this week, the outgoing Trump administration announced plans to withdraw 2,000 troops from Afghanistan by mid-January. The decision was criticized amid concerns the sharp, fast reduction of troops would weaken the Afghan government's ability to deal with a resurgent Taliban and other militants. As coronavirus cases across the world reach almost 58 million registered infections, with more than 1,300,000 deaths, Mexico continues to be one of the worst hit countries. Authorities say it has surpassed the 100,000 death toll from COVID-19 and it has more than 1 million people infected. James Blears reports about the tactics which have resulted in the crisis.
Mexico's Deputy Health Minister and pandemic spokesman Hugo López-Gatell originally claimed that he wasn't convinced the coronavirus was any more lethal than ordinary influenza and its effects would diminish by October. He also insisted that mass testing for it would be a waste of time and money. Back in March, the Mexican government announced that the pandemic was not an emergency situation. The stark situation which today faces Mexico suggests a very different scenarios developed. The Johns Hopkins University in the United States says that more than 100,000 Mexican people have died from the virus and more than 1 million are infected with it. But due to virtually no testing, the numbers could be much higher on both counts, perhaps 3 times as bad and deadly. The Mexican government's fateful decision to reopen the badly dented economy in May has been severely criticized. Officially, Mexico's death rate is 9.8 people per 100, which is the highest among the 20 nations most affected by the pandemic. Only the United States, Brazil and India have a higher death rate from the pandemic. López-Gatell's belatedly changed his tune. He now says there is no precedent in this country for an acute infectious disease affecting the lives of so many. With tragedy comes altered wisdom, and all the indications are that even worse will follow. For Vatican News, James Blears reporting.
A leading Catholic figure in Pakistan is calling on the government to guarantee the rights of every member of the country's minority communities. Cardinal Joseph Quds, Archbishop of Karachi, says that kidnapping and forced conversion and marriage of girls from minority communities are cases of abuse of fundamental human rights, not religious issues. Robin Gomes has more.
Cardinal Joseph Quds, Archbishop of Karachi, made the point in a meeting held on November the 19th at St. Patrick's Cathedral in Karachi. We are citizens of Pakistan and the law is the same for every citizen of Pakistan, he said. It's the responsibility of the state to provide protection to ensure justice to every citizen without distinction of creed, culture, ethnicity and social class, he added. The local diocesan branch of the National Commission for Justice and Peace organized a meeting to discuss the recent case of Arzu Raja and other Christian minors kidnapped and forced to convert and marry their Muslim captors. Cardinal Quds expressed appreciation for the efforts of Christians who are committed to addressing cases of kidnapping, forced conversion and marriage of underage girls. I also appreciate the role of the people of civil society and their support to bring justice to young girls and their families, he said, particularly mentioning Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, president of the Pakistani People's Party, for his intervention in the case of Arzu Raja. The 13-year-old girl was kidnapped in Karachi on October the 13th and was forcibly converted and married to her Muslim captor. The Sindh High Court upheld the marriage on October the 27th, saying the girl was 18 and had converted of her own free will. However, under pressure from public opinion, both Christians and Muslims, and the intervention of Bhutto Zardari, the High Court reversed its earlier ruling and ordered the police to find Arzu, which they did that day. A medical board on November the 9th confirmed her 13 years of age, but the court is still to determine whether she converted of her own free will. Cardinal Coates pointed out that the culprits must be punished according to the law of the country. Kidnapping someone, forcing a person to marry or to change religion is a crime punishable according to the laws in force, he added. I am Robin Gomes.
Every year on November the 21st, World Fisheries Day is observed to highlight the importance of the marine-based labour sector. As the world battles the COVID-19 pandemic, Cardinal Turkson, in a message to mark World Fisheries Day, noted that the outbreak has had dramatic consequences for the economics of many countries and a severe impact upon more vulnerable sectors such as fisheries. Speaking to Lydia O'Kane, Martin Foley, Chief Executive Officer and European Regional Coordinator of Stella Maris UK, offers practical and pastoral care to all seafarers, welcomed the Cardinal's message and spoke of the challenges of the pandemic.
What do you think of Cardinal Turkson's message for this day?
Well, it demonstrates the support of the Church through the dicastery for promoting integral human development for fishers and their families. That during these challenging times, in particular, the Church, through Stella Maris, mission to seafarers and fishers, remains close to them, and that fishers and their families are in our prayers, and that also the Stella Maris network in ports around the world is there to support fishers and their families.
In the message, obviously the Cardinal focused a lot about the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the big things he focused on a number of areas within that. One of them was working conditions, the fact that people may not have PPE equipment, certain things that they won't even have. What were your thoughts on that?
I think what he said is timely, and actually I spoke in a conference organised by Dicastery and the FAO, the Union Food and Agricultural Organisation, and the inadequate supply of PPE to fishers was an issue that I highlighted as well. Even pre-pandemic, many fishers were denied adequate PPE. Now, with the added risks posed by the pandemic, it's even more important that fishers are supplied with adequate PPE. That's something that our chaplains are doing in many ports around the world, and giving face masks to fishers and helping them with basic hygiene measures. But it's primarily the responsibility of their employers. And we would really urge employers of fishers to step up and meet their responsibilities.
And that's all for this edition of Vatican and World News. Thanks to Mario Scaton in studio in the Vatican. I'm Linda Bordoni. Bye-bye.